The Chinese internet today is unrecognizable from the internet we all know here. It's been roughly 15 years since Google and much of the free and open internet was blocked in China and replaced by CCP-controlled domestic platforms such as WeChat and Weibo. An entire generation has grown up never knowing the internet beyond these platforms. They don't long for the global internet because, by design, they've never meaningfully experienced it. In that time, the CCP has spent billions of dollars to erect a complex technical architecture to isolate over 1 billion people from the global internet. However, its ability to control information has less to do with blocking access to foreign websites and far more to do with its success creating an entirely new ecosystem and re-engineering its population's online behavior. This is the fundamental challenge we're faced with today. OTF was established over a decade ago to help journalists and human rights defenders counter online censorship. During that time, the cat and mouse game of internet freedom has remained fundamentally unchanged. Even in countries considered to have advanced information controls, like Russia and Iran, people still download circumvention tools to access the global internet. Internet freedom solutions are developed based on the assumption that overcoming censorship is simply a technical impediment that, once addressed, will meaningfully restore free online expression. However, this assumption no longer holds in China. The CCP is not simply building an ever greater firewall. It has undertaken a much more ambitious project, erecting multiple layers of self-reinforcing technical and social controls, the result of which is not a globally recognizable internet with key redactions, but a wholesale substitution of an entirely distinct online ecosystem. This ecosystem is characterized by the substitution of global platforms for domestic alternatives. Although highly censored, these platforms are extremely compelling. They're well-designed and content-rich. As a result, most Chinese internet users have little reason to explore beyond China's own social media universe. What this substitution does is provide China's censors with a huge home field advantage. The amount of control that can be asserted through WeChat and other platforms is far beyond what's possible on the open internet. On these platforms, censorship is faster, more nuanced, and more complete. Surveillance is harder to avoid, and party messages are spread more forcefully by committed little pinks. For those who want to look for information or connections that are unavailable on domestic platforms, precisely how to do so is far from simple. The Chinese government has engaged in a novel project of meta-censorship to obscure even the possibility of circumvention from its own citizens. They have criminalized circumvention tools and thoroughly blocked discussion of how to download them. Domestic search engines don't index censored sites. App stores, notably those run by Apple and Google, remove thousands of apps at the request of the Chinese government, including most internet freedom tools. And as if these obstacles weren't enough, it is only then that users must contend with the Great Firewall, which, as was mentioned, remains the world's most advanced national filtering system. From the vantage point of an average Chinese user, it's become increasingly difficult to even imagine what exists beyond China's domestic ecosystem, much less discover how to access it. The end result is a dramatic change in user behavior. As researchers at Stanford concluded after they gave students in Beijing circumvention tools, even with these technologies, few students use them to access the global internet unless they were actively incentivized to do so. The era in which we could reasonably assume that most Chinese citizens could and would naturally seek out uncensored content is unfortunately over. Traditional circumvention tools such as VPNs remain an important part of any internet freedom strategy. However, moving forward, we must adopt an updated approach that fosters more purposeful connections between information seekers and information providers. While China's internet substitution model provides its citizens with the bread and circuses of contemporary online culture, what it intentionally omits remains in demand when people know how to seek it out. In the same Stanford study I mentioned a second ago, researchers found that Chinese students who were exposed to the global internet maintained a lasting demand for politically sensitive content and circumvention tools. There's no single unifying policy solution to peel back the layers of China's information controls, but some key starting points are: internet freedom tool developers will need to more intimately understand and design around the technical limitation and socialized online behaviors of users in China. Creators of objective, otherwise unavailable content will have to seek out connections with their audiences in less traditional online spaces. Apple, Google, and other US technology companies must end their current practice of aiding CCP censorship efforts. And to counter the normalization of techno-authoritarianism, we must join with like-minded partners to advance a vision of a free global internet despite the realities of fracture and fragmentation. It took the CCP decades and billions of dollars to engineer a socially and technologically distinct online environment. The elements of any effective response will necessarily take patience, time, and significant resources. While I focused today on the domestic implications of China's information controls, we're already seeing other governments adopt these same strategies. If we don't contest China's model of internet substitution at its source, we'll be unable to counter it where it spreads. The scale of the challenge is immense and yet unquestionably worthwhile. There's no message the US could deliver that's more credible or more powerful than helping facilitate Chinese citizens' own search for the truth.